It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order with 5 board members present. First thing we need to do is 2.01, adjourn to sign die.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn to sign die. Is there any further discussion? Moved by Brian, seconded by David, by the way. Sorry. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order. And the first act of business is to elect a president.
I'd make a motion that we elect Susan Ward as the board president.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in a second to Susan to be the next board president. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And I'll go ahead and do the next one. And the next business item is to elect a vice president.
I'd make a motion to appoint David White, or elect David White as the board vice president.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to appoint or to approve David White as the vice president. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. One note, Susan, that if you're interested in going to the board training, KASB board training, that is on August 3rd at 8:30 a.m. is when it starts, and we can talk about it later if you're interested.
Okay.
We'll make some arrangements. So
President and vice president both go, don't they? Or
they can, sure.
Not necessarily do,
Yep.
but can.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right, so we need to approve the agenda for tonight.
We need to reconvene as.
Reconvene
To
first.
reconvene the meeting, first of all, I guess. Let's start that way. Do I have a motion to go back into open session and reconvene the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, 5-0. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Brian, seconded by David this time. You get the second seat. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. 5-0. Now, we have quite a lengthy consent agenda, as this is our organizational meeting for the year. If we could kind of look down through the resolutions and see if we have any conflicts, and if there are any ones that we want to pull out.
I think the two that were pulled out for a board member who's not present, so I think they're back in. I think we're good to go.
Okay, and then do we need to go ahead and determine who's on what committees already, or is that later?
I think we've already done
It's
that, and
all
they're all in the resolutions.
Already in the resolutions.
Yeah,
Okay,
the names are in the resolutions.
all right, so we might be able to go ahead and take care of quite a chunk. Do I hear a motion
Madam
to?
President, I move that we approve the
Agenda.
consent agenda.
All right, motion by David. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Marge. That includes the minutes and things. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. 5-0. On to comments from the public. We currently have a number of people who would like to comment. The Board of Education is always glad to hear from the people that have kids in our school and our constituents. When we go and have our meetings, we always limit those to 5 minutes. We ask that you not specifically mention people's names. Those are things for non-elected personnel that need to be done in executive session. And the other unspoken rule is that we always will treat you with respect and ask that you treat us with respect. So we have a list of them here. I don't know, there's Donald Morgan, David Morgan, Pat Morgan. Do you want to each individually speak, or is that a family? Okay, who would like to start? Okay, and you are?
My name is David Morgan. Could you go to
David?
the microphone, please?
Just to the podium, because they do, okay, so David first.
Sorry, my name is David Morgan, and I live at 745 South Hickory. I've worked for a company two different companies, and they did a lot of stuff that they were insurance companies, and we did mold that was growing in homes and buildings and things that have been flooded and all that stuff. And it came to my attention that there is mold in the school, and I worked for two companies, Preferred Contracting and Twin Oaks Remodeling. When I worked there, there was a lot of things that we had to do with mold and stuff, and the stuff can make you sick. And I have a son that's just starting school, and I know if you guys had kids that were going to this school or have been to the school, I mean, the issues of the mold that are in the corners, I mean, that's something that has to be addressed, because that can make people very, very sick, and it could even possibly kill people, being that it is black mold. And one person cannot fix this issue, because, I mean, it's something that a professional actually needs to come in and look at this, because I sure wouldn't want to have my son go to the school because he already has allergies. And I mean, mold can affect a lot of people. I know you guys have all watched the news and seen the stuff that black mold can do, and it's been an ongoing issue. And I just would hope that you guys would take the opportunity to make sure that it is looked at and it is addressed, because it is a major concern. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, what we do with the comments, typically we all kind of take notes and things. We refer those back through our administration, and then we'll try to get back with people as the time goes on. Okay, Donald or Pat, which? And just state your name, please.
Yeah, my name's Donald Morgan. I live at 730 South Main. And actually, I'm kind of disinterested because I don't have any children going to the school, but I will have a grandchild that'll be going to Eugene D. Field. It's the school that's in question. I got some information from the Center for Disease Control that I just wanted to run by you all. And as David mentioned, you know, one person just coming and eyeballing mold, there's no way you can specifically tell except black mold. And it's pretty self-evident that black mold is an issue in that particular school. But let me just read a few things to you, and I may be a little slow at this, so bear with me, please. Mold exposure does not always present a health problem indoors. However, some people are sensitive to molds. These people may experience symptoms such as nasal stuffiness, eye irritation, wheezing, or skin irritation when exposed to molds. Some people may be more susceptible to these reactions to molds. Severe reactions may occur among workers exposed to large amounts of molds in occupational settings, specifically and more prevalent in farmers working around moldy hay. Severe reactions may include fever, shortness of breath. Immunocompromised persons and persons with chronic lung diseases like COPD are at an increased risk for an opportunistic infections and may develop fungal infections in their lungs. Generally, it is not necessary to identify the specifics of molds growing in a residence or a building, and the CDC does not recommend routine sampling for molds. Current evidence indicates that all allergies are the type of diseases most often associated with molds. Since the reaction of individuals can vary greatly, either because of the person's susceptibility or the type and amount of mold present, sampling and culturing are not reliable in determining your health risk. If you are susceptible to mold and mold is seen or smelled, there is a potential risk, health risk. Therefore, no matter what type of mold is present, you should arrange for its removal. Furthermore, reliable sampling for mold can be expensive, and the standards for judging what is and what is not acceptable or tolerable quality of mold have not been established by the Centers for Disease Control. Large mold infestations can usually be smelled if there's a lot, I mean a real whole bunch. The term toxic mold is not accurate. While certain molds are toxinogenic, meaning they can produce toxins, specifically mycotoxins, the molds themselves are not toxic or poisonous. Hazards presented by molds that may produce mycotoxins should be considered the same as other common molds, which can grow in your house or in your building. There is always little mold everywhere, in the air, on many surfaces. There are very few reports that toxinogenic molds found inside homes and buildings can cause unique, rare health conditions, such as pulmonary hemorrhage or memory loss. These case reports are rare, and causal link between the presence of toxinogenic mold and these conditions has not been proven. In 2004, the Institute of Medicine found there was sufficient evidence to link indoor exposure to mold with upper respiratory tract symptoms, cough, wheezing, and otherwise healthy people, with asthma symptoms in people with asthma and with hypersensitivity to pneumonia. In individuals susceptible to the immune-mediated condition, the IOM also found limited or suggestive evidence linking indoor mold exposure and respiratory illness in other healthy children. In 2009, the World Health Organization issued additional guidance, the WHO guidelines for indoor air quality, dampness, and mold. I thank you for your time, and all of this can be found on the Center for Disease Control, and I just typed in black mold on Google, and it's the third one down. And there's a lot of information there that all of you, I know it's probably a little bit out of order. I should have presented each and every one of you with this stuff, but I done it at the last minute, so I apologize for that. But there's a lot of information out there, and from all of the evidence that I personally have seen, and me being in the maintenance department at Ford Motor Company and General Motors for over 30 years, I have found and dealt with mold and also asbestos. And like my son pointed out, it's not just a real quick fix and come in and paint over it or sheetrock over it and use bleach and kills on it, because that's not going to do it. But there is evidence that there is black mold in Eugene D. Field. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, sir. Should we finish up the Morgan clan with Pat Morgan?
I did make copies.
Okay.
If she would have told me, I'd have made copies.
That's just like her, I guess. She just, what can you, well, I'm glad you admit to that. So now we're ending with the
Thank
boss.
Okay, my name's Pat Morgan, and I'm at 730 South Main Street also. Okay, mold has been an ongoing problem at Eugene Field School. Not only is it an eyesore and leaves a feeling of uncleanliness, but it's also a health concern. Here's what the EP has to say about mold. Some people are sensitive to mold. For these people, exposure to mold can cause symptoms such as nasal stuffiness, irritable eye, wheezing, skin irritation. Some people, such as these, with serious allergies to mold may even have more serious reactions. Severe reactions may occur among workers exposed to large amounts of mold in occupational settings such as farming, working around molded hay. Severe reactions may include fever, shortness of breath. Some people with chronic lung illness, such as obstructive lung disease, may develop mold infection in their lungs. Moisture problems in school buildings can be caused by a variety of conditions, including roof and plumbing leaks, condensation, excessive humidity. Some moisture problems in schools have been linked to changes in building construction practices during the past 20 to 30 years. These changes have resulted in tightly sealed buildings that may not allow moisture to escape easily, which I think we know that we just put new buildings in the school that none of the windows, or I'm sorry, windows in the building that none of them open. So that could create a problem. Moisture problems in schools are also associated with delayed maintenance or insufficient maintenance due to the budget and other constraints. Temporary structures in schools, such as trailers and portable classrooms, have frequently been associated with moisture and mold problems. If any of us were to go into a doctor's office, restaurant, or any other place offering public service and saw mold growing, we would probably leave immediately and not return. Day in and day out, our students are subject to poor air quality and mold. We feel it is inexcusable to ignore this problem for the well-being of our students, staff, and faculties, and want the problem to be addressed prior to the start of our new school. My grandson, Derek, takes a class at another building here in Ottawa, and he's there for an hour, and the first half hour he does exercise, and then the next half hour he actually performs what he's there for. And after he's there an hour, I can tell just by watching him that his nose, starts to have trouble breathing. The building's been flooded several times. I don't know that I need to name the building, but I see issues with him just being in the building in an hour. And so I guess I'll sum it up by saying I'd like to see possibly the board members, maybe a committee of parents, the head of maintenance, because the teachers and some of the parents that are here, I know, volunteer over there daily, sometimes weekly, whatever. But I'd like to see a committee of parents, the school board, and maybe some of the teachers, because they're there on a daily basis and knows where the issues are, and go into the school and point it out to everybody so that it can be addressed and a professional brought in and see what needs to be done. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. We have 4 others. We've got Tim and Lori Catlin. I'm thinking they're in the same house, so they're probably related, you know. And then Richard Colson and Carrie Toomey. So any of those like to come forward? You never assume relationships anymore.
My name is Lori Catlin, and I have 4 daughters, and 2 have graduated from Eugene Field and 2 currently attend. And I'd like to raise some financial questions to the board members tonight. After I reviewed your budget and looked over some papers, I found that last year USD 290 received $11,199 for each student enrolled in our school district. There were 2,400 students enrolled, so that would be $27.1 million. That money coming from the state, your tax levies, and all the other funding. As I looked over the old board minutes, there were several things that I found troubling. There were thousands of dollars spent on trucks, on roof repairs to the bus barn, on rock, on there was $141,000 to remodel this building, including the lights in the parking lot. There was a John Deere tractor for $7,800. There were lawnmowers that were paid thousands of dollars for. Thousands spent on new trucks, lawnmowers, and this board office. As you told the parents as you closed Eisenhower, and the teachers as you let them go, these are tough economic times. Money spent on anything that does not directly affect the education of our children and their safety cannot be justified. I know that you have to spend money to maintain the school properties, but I would like to remind you that tonight that Eugene Field is still a property of the school district, and it is your responsibility to maintain it. How much are the kids at Eugene Field worth to the school district? If you look back to the $11,199 per student, with approximately 280 kids at Eugene Field, they're worth to the district $3.1 million. The district has spent dollars to build new schools, remodel other schools, and Mr. Catt even said in the paper in in July of 2009 that some of our facilities like Garfield Elementary and Lincoln Elementary are better equipped to teach students compared to the other schools in the district. As I see it right now, the kids at Eugene Field are worth $3.1 million to this district. And where did that money go? Not to maintain our school, but on lawnmowers, trucks, and perhaps improvements to the other elementary schools, and even this office. Part of the mission statement for the district is to nurture a safe, cooperative environment that values students, staff, and the community. Eugene Field does not provide a safe environment for our students or our staff. It seems that the buses are more valuable than our kids. Our kids and teachers have sat in a building with leaking roofs for years, but not the buses. In our opinion, our school has not been maintained to the level of the two elementary schools. I understand that the fate of Eugene Field has not been decided. In the meantime, I would like to have you invite the public and the press to tour all three of our elementary schools. You only need to walk through the doors to discover the stark reality. A new school has been built, millions have been spent to remodel another, and Eugene Field is rotting down with our kids and teachers sitting inside of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Tim? Mr. Catlin?
Hi, my name is Tim Catlin. I live at 2087 Louisiana Road, and two of my children are currently attending Eugene Field, and I have two of them that have already graduated. I've come to discuss a topic that I think you've probably been discussed a few times, the issue of mold. This is actually a piece of plaster provided to us with mold on it inside the school. Attention, in the library, in the east bathroom, that's the wall that our children are going to school in. That's what it looks like on the inside, taken on 4/2 of this year. And if you need copies of these, I'd be happy to apply them to you. Here's another picture of a mushroom growing along the baseboards in one of the classrooms. We have a mold issue because we have a moisture issue, and the window units that are currently in there, this is with those brand new windows, but the window units are not drying out the school. What's currently there is not sufficient enough to lower the humidity below 55% to cause mold to go inactive. Until that is done, until you address the humidity issue in the school, that's not going to go away. The air remediation unit you're putting in is a step in the right direction for the CO2. It won't bring any additional moisture in, but it's not doing anything to dry it up. Example of another mushroom, this one was on 4/20 of this year. Here's a picture showing the water damage where the building is leaking above the roof in there. And if you notice, there's a little brown spot here. That is rodent droppings. When these pictures were taken and they peeked above the ceiling to see where the stains on the tiles were coming from, the smell of rodent feces and urine was enough to make them almost gag when they shot the picture. Another picture of mold. This one was taken just a couple of days ago on July 3rd, showing brown mold growing along the edge of the baseboards.
What classroom was that in?
The picture was handed to me. I'm unaware what classroom that's in there, but I'm sure.
13.
Huh?
113.
113? Okay, 113. We were told that the school is all ready to go for this fall, and that's the type of mold that's sitting there. My question is, if this was the waiting room at Ransom Memorial Hospital, do you think people would want to bring anyone sick here? If you went in to visit your child in the hospital and this was growing along the baseboard in that hospital, would anyone set foot in that building ever again? I don't think so. The problem we have is a lack of trust, because we keep being told, nope, there's no mold in the building. In fact, it's been alleged that the dates on these photos have been faked up. And my question is, which way were they faked up? Were they faked up meaning they were just shot recently and we post-dated them 3 months earlier? If so, that means the mold and the mushrooms are going right now. That doesn't fix any situation. Or if it was before you put your new windows in a year ago, we thought, I don't think those windows are going to work. Let's take some pictures and put some date a year from now, just in case we need them. If anyone believes that, instead of photos, we should be picking stocks at this point. The problem is there is no trust left between the parents and the school district. I think what needs to be done is to bring in an outside agency. I've heard that you all are considering bringing in NIOSH. That would be an excellent idea. They will come in at no charge to the school and examine it and go through it from top to bottom and say what needs to be done or what doesn't need to be done. At that point, if there's nothing wrong with the school, that would alleviate a lot of concern of parents. And if there's anything that's escaped to the school's attention, the school district's attention at that point, you will be able to find out exactly what's wrong, and they will give you, free of charge, suggestions on what to do to remediate those type of problems. Again, to solve your mold problem, you have to fix the humidity in the building. And I understand $700,000 or $800,000 is a tremendous amount of money. You currently have window units that really aren't working as well as they could because teachers have to shut them down when they're teaching because they're just too loud with the sound of the machine running and kids sitting twisted in their chairs, rustling papers, that type of thing. It's too noisy. Maybe a low-cost alternative would be to provide air conditioning to the gym or multi-purpose room between the window units blowing in their room into the hall and from the gym blowing into the hall, and all weekend long, all night long, you have those air conditioners working to try to dry out the building. If you lower the humidity below 55%, the spores will go inactive and they will basically shed the spores and it'll just come up in your vacuum cleaners. It is a very cost-effective way to work with mold. You can just lower the humidity and it will stop it from going there. And I guess lastly is when I look at this mushroom picture, I would hope that the emergency room doctors at Ransom Memorial, if there's a small child that comes in really sick, they're thinking, you know, they look like they're in anaphylactic shock, or perhaps they've eaten some type of poisonous substance. Maybe if they come from Eugene Field, maybe they ate a little poison mushroom that was growing along the baseboard in their classrooms, because really mushrooms growing in a classroom is just absolutely unacceptable. It is a tremendous health risk to the children and is really not acceptable. Acceptable. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you in the future. Thank you.
Carrie or Richard?
Good evening. My name is Richard Colson. I have 2 students currently at Eugene Field and 2 that have graduated within the last 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen of the school board, concerned Eugene Field parents and guests, I want to thank you for allowing us to address this body on this most important issue. Many things have been said over the past month on both sides of the debate. Feelings have been wounded, accusations made, and oaths sworn. As 2 bodies whose primary goal is the safety and well-being of the children at Eugene Field Elementary School, I feel that a considerable amount of trust has been lost. I would very much like to see that trust rebuilt. One way that we can achieve this is to put any he said, she said debates to rest by bringing in an unbiased third party to review the mold situation, the effectiveness of an air handler unit alone in reducing CO2 levels, the safety of placing our children in rooms with no secondary escape route in the case of a fire, and the ability of our children to focus on their schoolwork when the winter temperatures in the classroom are routinely over 85 degrees, sometimes topping 90 degrees. During these times, the teachers are unable to turn on their air conditioning units because maintenance routinely flips the breakers during the winter, so they will not operate. Trust, ladies and gentlemen, is what it comes down to. Trust that those in power are concerned with the same issues we parents are concerned with. I feel bringing in a third party like NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, for a complete review of Eugene Field would go a long way to rebuilding that trust. The NIOSH organization is completely free and trusted nationally as an unbiased and knowledgeable resource. I would ask, however, that the current head of maintenance not be put in charge of contacting NIOSH, as his past behavior has been seen as an extreme violation of the trust of the parents of Eugene Field and this administration. We are all here for the same reason, to educate our children and to make sure that they have the ability to learn in the safest environment possible. Let's work together to rebuild the trust that we should have in one another. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kerry Toomey, and I currently have one child in Eugene Field. What I was going to come to the board and talk about tonight isn't the mold, it's the fire alarm in the building. I believe it was at the last meeting, the board said that they were going to bring the school up to codes. The fire alarm is nowhere close to being up to codes. I do know you have 120 volt smoke detectors in the commons area. I do know you have a small panel there that I've been told has 3 pull stations, one on the second level of the building, one on the first level of the building, and one in the basement. I don't know this for a fact, that's just what I've been told. There's no automatic system in place, so to speak, for that. I do commercial fire alarms for a living, I will tell you that. So I do notice things when I walk into a building, and that was one of the first things I noticed when my daughter started kindergarten there, and it bothered me then. I guess I've just kind of let it blow over, but now I think I'm bringing it to the board because I think the board really needs to look at, if you're talking about the safety of all the kids, I know, was it December, I believe, the board approved and had cameras installed in the school for the safety of the kids, but we do not have any life safety, so to speak, automatic alarm system. There's no sprinkler system installed. There's no nothing in that building. There's, in the modular units and in the house, there's nothing tied in between that's communicating in between there. That if the house was to start on fire, is that used as a art room, I believe now, the house is? And if it started on fire, there's no way the school's going to know unless somebody runs over there and tells them. I do know, talking to one of the fire marshals when I was on a job here a while back, and I was kind of explaining my concerns about the school's fire alarm system. He explained to me that he said he was going to get me some information on it, and I haven't got that information because I was going to bring it to you. It was around 15, 16 months ago, I guess. There was a school in Indiana, had 214, I believe is what he said, students enrolled in that. What that school had in place for a fire alarm system was 1 pull station on the first level and 1 pull station on the second level, just like Eugene Field. It did catch on fire with students in there. 58 students died in that fire. I don't want to see that happen here. And I hope you guys would look at doing something for that school. Thank you.
Right. Thank you all very much. We will be moving on with the agenda. We don't have any
Susan,
others,
just
right, Terry?
Real quick, we'll put together some information, and you'll see one thing tonight in just a few minutes here, and would like to sit down and visit about all these issues, and the fire alarm things, any information you have would be great. I mean, we have the state fire marshal come and does their inspections all the time, and if there's something else, we'd be happy to know about it, but
It's more grandfathered right now, and I know it's grandfathered because when the school was built. But with all the construction and stuff that you're gonna be doing to the school at this point, personally, I don't see how you could not want to stick that little bit of expense for the safety of the kids, the teachers.
now, again, if you give me that, we just need to know what's out there.
Okay, all right. So we'll
Go ahead.
get the information together and get back with them, and you've got their addresses and things here, right? Okay, 8.01, Richard? have a couple different items to report on, I believe.
Yeah, I got a couple updates here. I basically want to talk about Eugene Field and where we're at with BCI and their job they've got going on the ventilation system. Right now, they're marking holes, getting ready for KCI Coring to come tomorrow to drill the holes in the rooms to run the piping. They've been getting the piping down into the basement or crawl space area. I think Brandon met with the City of Ottawa Codes Department today to present that proposal to them, how it was going to be done. We also asked, Mr. Catt asked me to have Brian put together pricing for ventilation of the gym and the AC for the gym area. And he has furnished me with budget numbers before the meeting on that particular project. We also had a professional company come in this last week to recommend to us that has their mold certification and remediation to test our school and to give a report on what was found. And I'll have him come up here in just a few minutes to give that report to the board. On another update item that we have at Lincoln Elementary, we have insulation on the high walls of the barrel of both ends of that school has fallen out, and we're looking at different ways of what it's going to take to require to get that insulation reinstalled in those walls. It's a case of where high walls and then ceiling comes out far enough to where we can't get right straight to it, so it's going to require a little bit. I've got Lloyd Builders looking at it with me as well. I'd like to introduce Mr. Van from ACT mold certification. Paul?
My name is Paul Van. I'm with ACT, and we were asked to come out and do some limited mold sampling at Eugene Field for some concerns that they had. I came out last Friday, walked through the facility with Mr. Smith and also with Ginger. They pointed out some areas where they had some water infiltration and asked us to do some air sampling to see if there's any mold in the air or what could possibly be going on that we might be able to find. Excuse me. So we had done that. We walked through the building, showed me some areas. I went back and took air samples throughout 9 different areas, and then 1 tape lift sample in the bathroom that you were talking about in the library. And the results are, at the time of my sampling, there is really no mold issue in the air. It's what it is. It's a snapshot of time. So we took air samples in each one of those rooms, sent them off to an independent lab, and they came back, and you have that. And then we do a comparison to the outside air, because what you want to see is the inside air as the same or less than, the inside air is same or less than what's outside.
Mr. Van, quick question for
Sure.
you. I understand that you do that this is a snapshot sample,
Mhm.
that you found no ambient air mold at or above
What was outside?
what was outside. Did you find anything that led you to believe that there is a mold remediation needed in Eugene Field?
I did not at that time. I mean, there is some water damage, there is some staining. I recommended in the bathroom area to clean that. Mold needs 2 things. It needs food and needs water. Now, growing on plaster, there's no food there. So it might be growing on some dirt that's on the wall or on some dust, but there's really nothing there for it to eat. And in carpet, that's a different story. Most carpets are synthetic, so there's not a lot of mold there or a lot of food there. It's a lot of stuff that settles in the carpet that the mold eats.
So if we were to look at this from a global standpoint,
Mhm.
and we were to move ahead with our current plan, which is to add the air ventilation system so that we're currently circulating air better, and we've done repairs to the roof, which hopefully will take care of the leak problem. In your best guess, and I'm not asking you to make a life or death decision, I'm just asking in your best guess, have we done the right steps at the right times to address the problem?
Yes. First thing you have to do with any kind of mold problem is you have to get rid of the water. If you don't get rid of the water, it's just going to grow back. They've taken the steps with the new roof and then with the replacement of the windows and the tuck pointing on the brick to address the water problem. Now, I understand that with an old building like that, there's still going to be some intrusion, and fixing that as you find it goes to that.
Okay. What are the likeliest places in the upcoming year? Where would you likely guess that we'll see intrusion again?
Probably around the windows, because you're going to have some caulking that isn't done right. So that's most likely the place you're going to see.
Okay. Do you think that we'll see an incursion of, I mean, if we go in the bathroom in the library and wipe down those walls and clean the walls, which I understand used to happen monthly as an issue. If we go in and do that, in your best guess, and again, this is a best guess scenario, based on what you know about that building, having done the samples in the building, should we see that again?
No, I don't believe you should.
Okay. In your best guess, should we see mushrooms growing along the floorboards of the building?
No, I don't believe you should. If you've collected the water and stopped the water from coming in, you shouldn't see mushrooms. The other thing that goes to this is also what this gentleman was talking about, getting the humidity level down to below 55% is a big step. So even if you don't have water coming in and you do have a big humidity problem, you're still going to see those issues because you're going to get condensation buildup in wood or in sheetrock or in ceiling tiles where mold will grow. So if this new HVAC system will help reduce that, then that will go a long way to causing any problems. And that might be the problem in that bathroom, and not necessarily water intrusion, but just humidity buildup from the sun beating down and then making a little terrarium in there.
The ventilation is not a HVAC, right?
Correct.
No.
Okay, so you just said it would take a HVAC to correct it?
Well, that is, air conditioning, what air conditioning does is it pulls moisture out of the air.
But if we don't have it, then it's
Right.
not pulling, right?
But if you're also circulating air, it'll also go a long way to reducing the humidity level in the air. So if you're pulling more air out of the room and putting air back in and get a circulation like the breeze going through, it's going to reduce the buildup of humidity and the condensation that goes along with it.
Assuming now the current building is air conditioned by room air conditioners. Now, I grant you, it is not Class A in
Right.
terms of being quiet, but it is effective in cooling the room. If the room is cooled and we're circulating air, we should, by all rights and responsibilities, be drying the environment. Would I be understanding that correctly?
That would be correct.
Mr. Van?
Yes.
Could you step back just a minute and explain to me about ACT?
We are an environmental
and about
company.
you? Okay.
We're an environmental company out of Lenexa. We deal with indoor air quality, asbestos, lead type issues. We don't do any remediation. We're just an investigation company. And I've been doing it myself for about 10 years, working with it.
All right.
Have you seen the pictures, like, were you showing the areas where
Yes.
it's been photographed by parents that there is actually mold growing?
Well, what mold looks like and what's growing and what I saw, there was a lot of water intrusion, so there was some staining and there's some damage. I didn't sample all the carpets and everything and take tape lifts for mold because I wasn't asked to, because that would be quite costly. So normally what we do as a preliminary, you go in, especially with all the trades working in the building, take some air samples, and that air should have been disturbed enough that if we had elevated levels of that type of mold or any types of molds, we would normally get a good snapshot of that. And then if we did see the elevated levels, then we would come back in and then recommend more testing or a little more extensive look at it.
I guess my question though, did you not actually see the stuff that they're showing, that the pictures that they say is mold, you're saying that's not mold?
I did not, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I didn't test it to test if it was mold or not. Now, dust on the carpet, blue carpet, there's sheetrock or the plaster was deteriorating, so there was dusting going down on the floor there. So I can't say that it wasn't mold, but I'm just saying I didn't test for it.
Where did you say the air lift, where you did the tape lift?
In the bathroom in the library?
So you did the one that has no stool or sink in it?
No, and the one that did have one.
The one that did have one.
Yes.
So the mold staining on the upper wall and in the corners of the ceiling is where you
Right.
did your tape lift.
Yes.
So that, what you saw there is not active growing mold.
According to the lab report, it's not. The likelihood is, it's not likely growing active. So what was on the tape lift?
This is where you lifted it from,
No.
correct?
No.
This is the library bathroom.
There are two bathrooms in that library.
Right.
Okay.
There's one bathroom where all of the sink and the toilet and whatever else is in there has been removed. And that, as I understand it, is going to be remediated and used as a storage closet. There is a bathroom in the building. By the way, I spent a total of about 5 hours in the building in the last week, walking through, looking at all these pictures and looking at all the places. I did not find the same evidence. This picture of the torn up wall, yeah, it's there. The plaster that was held up, I was there when that plaster was removed. I know where that came from. There are stainings that look like mold. My question to you is, are those stainings that look like mold active growing mold, or are they just stainings, dead mold?
They could be just stainings. I don't know without testing them and then culturing them and finding out if it's
That's the point.
active.
You don't know
That's
until
what
you
we're
test.
trying to find
Right.
out.
But the first step, and normally when we do these kind of investigations, is to do some air sampling to see if there's something elevated. And if we see some elevated levels with the air, because it's actually the most cost-effective way to begin an investigation, then we can come back in and do a closer look or find for, if we see certain types of mold, we can look for different things. Like the black mold that they were talking about, Stachybotrys, we didn't find any of that. I mean, not a single spore in the samples we took. So- Correct.
And
Before you specifically pointed out places to test.
Yes, they showed us areas that had problems.
we,
The maintenance people showed us areas where they had water intrusion coming in, where there's obviously water damage done to the baseboards and the plaster. And then I also picked rooms at random when I went through and did the sampling.
But the fact that it hasn't rained, except for today, for 2 months, make that mold go inactive?
Definitely.
So once it starts to rain again, it'll all start to wake back up again?
There's potential for that, yes.
And you're talking about the HVAC, there's only window units in the classrooms.
Right.
They have to turn them off half the time when they teach, but the hallways in the gym, approximately 2/3 of the school has no air of any type in it, and this air remediation system is not in those hallways either.
Right.
So basically, 30% of the school has air conditioning that runs 30% of the time or 50% of the time. So would you say that's enough to lower the humidity to keep the mold out?
I don't believe it would be. But like I'm saying, with the new HVAC or the new air circulation system they're putting in, it might help to move that air around.
But it doesn't go in the hallways or the gym?
I don't know where it goes. I just know they were doing an upgrade, so
What type of upgrade of air
okay.
ventilation system is it?
I don't know. You'd have to talk to
Okay.
facilities. I don't
When
know.
he's here to make a report, and he was asked to do a certain scope of work, as opposed to, I don't want him to feel like he's being Gordon skewered.
No,
Okay?
I'm just not, I'm not
Because
an AC.
he was asked to do
HVAC
sampling.
professional.
I don't disagree with that, but in a way that, I mean, we can do that in an organized fashion. I'm gonna ask, Dean is gonna pull the information together, and he did random air samplings, and he did go in the rooms where they showed him the water intrusion. That was the scope of work and the way that he typically does it, is what he's explained. I wanna make sure that we will answer all the questions. We're not trying to say that
Richard?
we're trying to hide anything.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm assuming that some of the places that you showed, Mr. Van, were some of the places that you and I talked about in the building when I walked through the building. Every one of them. So that would have been every place where we saw
Right.
evidence of mold.
And we walked through,
Is that correct, Richard?
and I too walked through.
Because I can go back into the building and show anybody where I saw it.
Right.
So I'm assuming that you would,
113 in the room just west of that, in the corner.
In the bathroom.
103, 104.
yep.
In the bathroom.
And I'm not disagreeing that there is evidence of old mold in those places.
Correct.
Right.
The question is, before we do anything else, is that mold still active? The second question is, if it's not active, have we done what we need to do to keep it from becoming reactive?
Right, in terms of controlling humidity and/or feeding it, because you said it takes food and water
Right.
to make mold.
What was done? We spent $750,000 approximately over the last 3 years to eliminate water from the building, either through tuck pointing, changing the roof. We've now added an air ventilation system to move the air in the building.
And windows,
And windows.
New windows.
Windows.
To eliminate to,
according
don't
to
know
the
yet.
test so far. Now that it rained today, I don't know how much rain we got here in Ottawa. I wasn't in
It's a
town.
trace amount, it wasn't much.
Is there any, does it make sense to come back and test again after there's a significant rain if we get one to check that? Is that something that might change or not?
Yeah, if we got a significant rain, it might be worthwhile to come back in and then do some, we have a moisture meter, which is just a meter with some prongs, and you stick it up against the wall. It'll tell you if there's any moisture in the wall at all. And so it's good to go through and do that. It's also a very cost-effective way to find more moisture, see if there's moisture coming in. And then if we do, we can do sampling in the areas where we do find moisture coming in to see if there's something active growing.
What's a ballpark cost of something like that for you to do that?
Well, just a moisture meter reading is nothing but my time. So, we would certainly work out something, in a lump sum type fashion, so you know what you're getting into when we come in, and then provide you a proposal.
What we talked about doing too was ongoing testing of all this stuff, not just one time. I mean, when we had the mold issues at the high school, when they did the HVAC and did all that, we had on whatever company, I don't know who we used, but they came in all the time and kept monitoring and checking and doing those things.
Right, and
We need to do the same here to,
That's what I was
not
gonna
just
ask
one
her.
time and think, well, there's no issue, but we need to
Right.
continue with that.
so we are going to try to get a routine
We
testing
need
program in
to-
place here.
But right now, we're in the middle of, all of the construction stuff, and
I
they
know.
haven't been in the building to do they did the floors, but they haven't done the cleaning at all in the building, and
And any recommendations I would have for housekeeping as far as carpet cleaning, that kind of stuff, obviously with all the trades and the way the rooms are occupied with boxes and everything else, would change and probably be recommended to do closer to the beginning of school when things are getting back to where they're gonna be for the beginning, or for
I'm
the
curious,
school
just,
season.
I noticed I was reading through your report here, and you list several different certifications.
Mhm.
Based on what you see, and based on the certifications of the labs that you use, what additionally do you think is necessary in this case? If you were to propose a scope of work for us regarding the building and keeping the air quality as high as possible.
I would agree with this gentleman in that we need to bring the humidity down in the school. And however you can cost effectively do that, I know in a building like that, retrofitting a building with an HVAC system is probably worth more than building a new building, sometimes. But that would be it. Now, maybe a better plan at how the air conditioning systems work. A lot of times you can get those like hotel type air conditioning units are a little easier to work with, and they're also a little quieter because the motor is outside the window. But something to that effect where you can really address the humidity level, and I think that's probably now that we've addressed the water coming in, the tuck pointing, the windows, the roof, that's going to be the next big, especially in Kansas, issue.
But if we manage to leave the air conditioners on, we'd go a long way towards solving the problem.
Correct. Right, and then addressing the other areas would be an issue, something to be looking at.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Van. We also have, is it Brandon from BCI? Is there anything that you needed to update us on other than what Richard has said? Said?
Progress is underway to install the ventilation system.
Okay.
To Richard's point, the ventilation system will bring in fresh air that's been reconditioned. So that unit it has refrigeration in it, so it cools the air. It will then use the same energy that takes to cool the air to warm the air back to the room. So it will supply that air at dry through neutral conditions.
Brandon, can you explain how that works briefly for people here so they understand the system that we're looking at?
You better stand up there because it's supposed to be on closed circuit TV or something.
A little short. Brandon Livingston, I'm with BCI Mechanical, and I live 3637 Osborne Terrace, Ottawa, Kansas. The system that we're installing is a unit that's specially designed and engineered to handle outside air, and it is specifically designed to dehumidify the outside air. We bring the outside air down to approximately 55 degrees or lower. That's, if you want to get into the science of it, the psychrometrics that dehumidifies the air. So it's very similar to your home air conditioner or any air conditioner where 55 degrees is a relatively magic number. However, this unit also includes what we call a hot gas reheat coil. If we are only controlling the room temperature, when the room temperature satisfies, the compressor turns off. If we delivered 55-degree air to this building all the time, we would overcool the spaces. And so what this unit does, it'll cool the air to 55 degrees in a day like this where we've got a summer warm, hot, humid day.
This is the system that you're installing now, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. It'll cool that air and then warm the air back to whatever we set that temperature at. So for example, 70 or 72 degrees would be 72 would be considered a room neutral temperature. It's been dehumidified. When it's cooled, it's then warmed back to room temperature. So the air will come in at a room neutral temperature, so it won't feel cool, it won't feel warm, it'll be a room neutral. And by pressurizing the building, pushing that air into the classrooms, and then allowing the air to be the existing classroom air to be exhausted or pushed out of the classroom, we're applying a positive pressure to the building, which again, as the gentleman from ACT mentioned, controlling the building envelope is one of the critical steps in maintaining an indoor environment.
So you're essentially pumping into the building dry air.
That's correct. Yes, in the wintertime, the air will be quite dry. Obviously, because of the low relative humidities outdoors in typical wintertime conditions. Additionally, the unit will heat. It'll have gas heat exchanger in it, stainless steel heat exchanger, and it'll warm the air to 72 degrees if we, whatever that set point is that we determine. So we'll, again, dump the air in at room neutral, but if we take air outside that's 20 degrees and we warm it to 72 degrees, as we warm that air up, the relative humidity goes even lower. So in the wintertime, we'll have extremely dry air being pushed into the classrooms.
And yet this is not a system designed to change air temperature in the classrooms, correct?
No. It's not designed to change air temperature in the classrooms, and this unit is not intended to dehumidify the building. This unit will deliver dry, room-neutral air. Now, if the air that we deliver from this unit, and again, not having taken humidity measurements in the building itself, but if we dump drier air into the building than what's in the building, at that point, you are going to get a drying effect. Over time, that's correct. We are putting dry air into the building. We are taking exhaust air out of the building, and the means by which we are doing that, we're delivering the air into the building and pulling the air back out of the building, exhausting out of the crawl space. In my opinion, we're going to take that, the conditioned air is going to be pushed down, and if anything, I mean, you're getting a ventilation effect to the building all the way through the crawl space as well.
And so
No, it's all fresh air. Yeah.
Brandon, we've heard that the rooms last winter were so hot because the windows are so tight and, well, you can't open them. And they were so hot that they had to turn on their air conditioner, although then they couldn't turn them on because the breaker was pulled. Is what you're doing now going to help that problem of being too hot? It was like 80 degrees in some of those rooms.
It depends.
On what?
And I don't want to give you a mixed answer here, but if your room is 80 degrees and I'm delivering 72 degree air, then I'm going to essentially somewhat cool your room. Your room's going to try to go to 72 degrees as I dump in roughly 300. And by the way, we're delivering 15 cubic feet per minute per person. So 15 cubic feet per minute, CFM per person, which is what is prescribed by ASHRAE, and that is what code dictates. So the typical classroom at 25 students, you can do the math. And if I've done the math correctly, it should be 375 CFM. When we're complete with the project, there will be a certified test and balance company that will come in and measure that amount of airflow to certify and guarantee that we have delivered that amount. And these will be fixed quantities. So this is set, it's adjusted, it's certified, and it's either on or it's off. It's constant volume. And so to answer your question, Ms. Stevens, if the room is above the air temperature that we're delivering in there, then we're providing a cooling effect. If the room is below the air temperature that we're delivering to the room, then we're providing a warming effect. So we would typically, that temperature that we deliver, we're going to choose in the district. That's something, if they want to manipulate that, the operations staff, they'll be able to do that. You know, if they want to try to artificially warm the building, maybe perhaps they want to say, hey, let's dump in 75-degree air if your unit, like 75 or 78-degree air, and dump that into the classrooms, or if they want to cool that air a little bit. The limitation we have on the bottom end, we don't want to condense moisture. We're going to provide room neutral air. I don't know if that answered the question. If you're asking as far as the room's overheating, the steam system, you know, steam is very difficult to control, can be, especially with the age of the valves and the controls that are on those. And so based on my experience, I think that what you're seeing is the difficulty of controlling the steam convectors in the building. You know, once the steam system is up and warm and heating, it has a very, it's not as easily controlled as a hot water system or many of the other types of systems that we use today. I don't know if that.
I did notice, and maybe you can help me understand this since you're an expert in the area. I did notice that there's a fairly new plastic device near each of the radiators that I'm assuming is a regulator control valve on those registers.
Yes, and I believe I've seen the same. That should be the control valve, and I don't know, Richard, I think that's probably been installed in an effort to try and take better control of the steam system.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
We did it a couple years ago trying to control the heat.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing, you know, I mean, to their credit, you know, that's the right thing to do. The system with the older the old convectors and stuff that are there, you've got to understand over time there's some inside of those systems there's going to be some scaling and such that occurs, and if that gets caught into those valves and they don't control quite as well. So the other thing, just in general, you know, steam is hot, and so you know, if you come in and the room's cool and you go over and you turn it all the way up, well, if you have the steam system up and running, you have a lot of capacity, and then it gets really, you tend to, in my opinion, I've seen it, it tends to swing. They go one way and then they get too hot and then they turn it down, and then they'll leave for a while. They come back the next day and then it's cold again. And so it's, a steam system in general can be difficult to control.
Are those old cast iron convectors in that building?
The coils in them, I don't know that they're cast iron. I believe that they're a copper aluminum fin tube. It's like a fin tube type. Yes.
Okay. So they wouldn't hold temperature and mass then.
No. Okay. No, but the room itself would be the mass.
Yeah.
And
I
so
was concerned about the coil themselves.
Yeah.
Retaining heat mass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Livingston, last time you were here, you said you had to order a unit and things to know for sure when your end point would be.
That's correct.
So did that happen, and are you on schedule?
Yes, good question. I was on the phone today with the supplier, and we've paid the premium to expedite the unit, and he hasn't given me the locked-in date, but we're basing it on a 5-week ship cycle, so that should be here right at August the 13th, and I've asked for it sooner if we can get it. So I'm supposed to speak with him in the morning, and I should have a locked-in date. And that unit will be produced in Oklahoma at the manufacturer's facility and shipped directly to us. So if we get down to time crunch and it's a matter of a couple of days or something, if we need to take a truck and trailer down to Oklahoma to pick it up, by all means we'll do that. So,
yeah. So when will we air balance and certify? When will we balance and
air balance and certify will occur, you know, typically the day after. In this case, obviously with a time crunch, we're going to be prepared for the unit to arrive. When the unit arrives, we'll set the unit, and then obviously the electrician and stuff will commission and connect to that. We'll get the thing up and running, and typically, you know, within the first couple of days of operation, we'll have the air balancer come in. We'll coordinate that with your school staff and schedule there. So, you know, I don't know if we need to bring the balancer in, if we need to try and coordinate that to come in after hours or something, we can do that. But, you know, basically we have balance equipment, we can go through and put a balance on it initially. However, the certification of that is an independent party.
Yeah, so you don't have a dog in that fight.
That's correct.
It's an independent.
Well, I mean, I would prefer that you want an independent party.
Sure. All right. Any other questions?
2/3 of the school, that only addresses 1/3 of the school. What about the other 2/3 that doesn't have fresh air? Will it help it community-wise?
Anything that we do to dump in drier air than is in the building is going to help.
The other 2/3 will still stay somewhat humid.
We're not delivering ventilation air into those areas. That's correct. Yeah, if that's.
What's the name of your unit again?
The manufacturer is Aon.
Aon?
That's spelled AAON.
And what exactly is the name of the unit?
The model number's an RN. It's an RN series number, RN or RK.
If it's not a high vac, what is it?
It's an Aon.
It's an Aon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a new manufacturer of a new idea.
He's
Aon's
asking,
been.
if it's not an HVAC system, what is it? Basically.
Oh, it's a 100% outside air ventilation. I mean, it's 100% outside air unit. I'm sorry?
Same as a fan just blowing over hot.
It's a very specialized roof. It's a very specialized package rooftop unit. What Aon Corporation did in about probably 1990-ish, they recognized a need for this, and I think somebody alluded earlier. I heard a lot of really good comments. Somebody talked about the tightness of construction in the buildings that we build today, and a lot of that began to change after the energy crisis in the 1970s, and the cost of energy escalated. So, come through the 80s, and we started to tighten the buildings up. And what they didn't understand, or they didn't know at the time, didn't think about it, what was going to happen, the contaminants. And then as science has developed, so Aon Corporation recognized the need for this in about 1990. And so they took a unit, a standard type unit, which cools the air, but was controlled off of a thermostat. And in the early days, what they did was we typically just installed reheat. And so literally they would run the air conditioning and run the electric heater at the same time. Or hot water heat, whatever that was. And that's commonly done, I mean, in hospitals and in critical care facilities such as surgical centers and things, if you're familiar.
Similar to the old Carrier unit that was all combined in one unit.
Yeah, there's many manufacturers, yeah.
That's one.
Yeah.
They're the first ones that came out with it, though.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Back in the 50s.
okay, yeah.
You see the gray hair.
Sure.
Back in the 50s.
Absolutely. You might have known Willis Carrier. Do you know Willis? Okay.
Thank you, Brandon.
Just one more thing. I just want you made a comment that this was like a rooftop unit. In this particular installation, we're not putting it on the roof.
No. The installation will look very, very, very similar to whether you like it or not. There are Aon units sitting over here on the back side of the Goppert building. Thank you. And those are Aon units. Now, the Aon also makes a unit that doesn't have to handle 100% outside air. So they've kind of expanded. They found a niche market and then expanded into the others. But the installation will look very, very similar to the Goppert installation as we walk out these south doors. And over there, we'll have a curb underneath it, so it'll sit up off of the ground. And we will have insulated ductwork that will go into the former coal chases. We'll be in the process of forming those up here this week, and we'll pour concrete curb there, make it all look nice, and flash that all in. And one thing to point out that's real important in this is, I was there at 6 a.m. this morning with our staff, and we're going to make sure that we flash those correctly and things. The reason for the flashing and all that is to keep the water. You got to keep the water out. So if we can keep the water and the moisture out of the building, that's the first step in controlling the indoor environment.
Thanks, sir. All right, moving on to section 8.02. Thank you. Any board reports?
Well, I kind of already alluded to mine. I spent about 5 hours roaming through Eugene Field trying to figure out that stuff with Marge and.
I've been in the crawl space. I've been in everywhere there is in Eugene Field. And I want to say I appreciate the people that is here tonight. Had a meeting, site council parent meeting on Thursday night, and I believe what they want besides the air conditioning and the safety of their kids, I believe they need trust from us, and I think we need to build on that. work hard to do that, which I don't think we have in the past.
Well, in addition to that, though, I think that we as a board have done everything we can at this point, barring wholesale renovation of the entire facility without doing the planning, to do everything we can to make sure the building the air quality in the building is as good as it can be at this point. Now, does that mean we still have to decide how we're going to move forward in the future with the building? Yes, it does. Does it mean that maybe we go back and do more later? Most likely. Would I like to see some of the places in the building painted? Absolutely. But I think we've done everything we can at this point with the information we've got to do the best job for the kids that are in there as we can, barring making other levels of decisions that we haven't had a chance to make yet.
Can I say something? So in other words, what you're saying is that some entity, either an individual or collectively, decided to go with the Aon unit over going with the HIVAC system.
This board did that.
Yes, we did as a group.
Were both HIVAC and Aon presented?
Yes.
They were. Okay. And so the
At a
Aon,
cost difference of $390,000.
depending upon who you got the bids from. That's my question, is that.
We had more than one bid.
Okay. Were they local, or did somebody like A.D. Jacobson or U.S. Engineering bid on them?
Neither of those companies did, but we did have companies that came in and did, and that one was Brandon was one of the bidders, and he also bid against another company that was brought in by Mr. Smith.
And
It was a generally competitive bidding process. The decisions were made based on the fact that we had not made district planning decisions, but we had to act on air quality.
So long-term, is Eugene, do you feel as if we're talking about bulldozing it over or doing the upgrade?
We haven't made that decision yet.
We are meeting at a retreat on July 28th, and we will be discussing the future of
facility plan.
facilities, all of the facilities at that time.
Just the thought is, I understand it's a lot of money, and you gotta figure out what you do with the building. And the problem is, you've been deciding for the last 5 years, and I just don't want to see kids sitting there another 5 years.
I would disagree. I wouldn't disagree with you. I think we have to make some final decisions about what that building's going to be. I know at one time this school board brought a bond issue to the community and they voted it down.
Yep.
So we have to work within the confines of what you as taxpayers want to provide for us in terms of funding. That one bond issue was voted down. So we're working within the confines of what we have to deal with. And up until we have a new facilities plan in place, we've really done everything we can based on the information we have.
Are your hands a little bit tied that the Docker building is using the school's taxing authority to?
No.
No.
No,
No,
completely
it's a-
separate.
It's a complete.
What I'm saying is for the public, they're thinking, and they're seeing a tax bill, they don't know that is separate, they see it's all for the school district. That might affect the way they think on the bond issue, if they think, well, I'm already paying all this, and they're not knowing $700,000 this last year went to the ORC.
I don't disagree with your thought process, but I will tell you that that's not been the recommendation, that's not been the statements made to me from other members of the district. They're seeing it, the Gopper building, as a separate issue. Now, whether people like that or not is another story, but.
I don't think they're aware of
Yeah,
it.
but the issue of the bond issue that was in place that failed, that would have done something about a third school for this part of the town, the Gopper building didn't exist. It wasn't even on the planning stages yet at the time.
No, I just think when they did the Gopher building, that was when you closed down Eisenhower, let a bunch of teachers go. You know, had that funding, the school's taxing authority been applied back towards the schools versus the Gopher building, that could have helped.
But that,
But it's
Yeah, that's
separate.
not quite right.
it doesn't work that way
Yeah,
at all.
that's not quite right.
We can't
We can't
spend
do
their
that.
money. I
No,
mean,
but I'm saying they should be using your taxing authority to do that. You should use.
By
your
state law, they have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's a
their-
state
it's
law.
their taxing authority, it's not ours. It just runs through our budget. We couldn't add to our budget if they didn't exist. Our budget wouldn't change.
Right.
That's
Okay,
just an accounting feature for the state. The rec commission's budget is its own thing.
And we're not sure about the state.
Yeah.
They do lots of those. Same. A lot of the money that you guys were talking about that we get, they give it as a capers payment. They take it in one day, and the very next day they take it back out. So it looks like we get all this money, it's there for one day, and literally comes out the next day. There are a lot of things like that that make absolutely no sense, that make it look like we're getting the figure you said, when in reality, we're not getting that.
And in reality, too, we would never run a business the way the state runs its financial situation.
Yeah, we don't even go there.
Yep. All right, moving on to 8.03, superintendent report. Talk
Okay,
to us
well,
about budget, now that we
yeah,
brought up
we'll
that source
continue
subject.
that discussion here. Not in a whole lot of detail till we, get everything ready to publish. But first thing, what we're looking at is having our budget hearing on August 13th at 6:45. We usually do that before a regular board meeting.
And we encourage people to attend that.
But that'll be in this building, this room, at 6:45 on the 13th. The way it's planned right now, it has to be submitted to the state by August 25th. Valuation did go up 2% in general fund, and for general fund and the all other funds, went to $107,505,000, or $2.9 million increase. For general fund, all other funds were $119,312,000, and again, about $2.9 million increase, which has been a really good thing. We've had the valuation go down, and if you look at the spreadsheet or the information that's up there, you can see in 2010, 2011, and then this year it jumped back up. So things may be starting to turn, which is nice. 1 mil generates with the general fund $107,595, and 1 mil generates with all other funds. When I say all other funds, it's LOB, capital outlay, all the other things that taxes are assessed. That generates $119,312 per mil. If we leave our local option budget, we didn't assess quite 30% this past year now, but if we have our local option budget at 30%, with some of the things the state did, they did give us more state funding. We will see a decrease in the mill levy by 0.6 mils in the supplemental general. State aid went up 2% in that, and that would generate about $130,000 extra dollars in the local option budget. Capital outlay will remain at 5 mils. For us to make plans, and we've talked about this, long-range plans, and to try to increase that amount to do more capital projects, we could pass a resolution in October of 2013, and it would be assessed in 2014. So, I mean, we're a ways away before we can say we're going to raise capital outlay mill levy to fund some of these projects. But
Why do we have to wait that long?
You can only, it's a 5-year issue. The bond, or not bond, it is capital outlay lasts 5 years, and we republished, or we redid that 2 years ago, or no, just last year we did that for technology and added the 1 mil, and now you can only do it once in that 5-year period. So now we have to wait till the 2013 to publish it again, or to run that again. Again, bond and interest, state aid went up 2% in that as well. We will see the mill rate increase in bond and interest. Payments go up it'll increase 0.653 mils. We have 3.3 roughly in reserves, 3.3 million in reserves. Our payments, $2,659,000. And the question's always asked, why do you have so much in reserves? We've seen several districts go through this. Well, we don't collect enough taxes, for one thing, before the payments due, and have to have that on hand. But Piper School District, that has Legends, when Nebraska Furniture protested their taxes, they didn't get any of that money. They could not make their bond payment and pay their bills because they don't get any of it until that's resolved. And they did pay it eventually. But that's why recommendation from State Department of Ed is to have enough to make your payment in there. But that's why the carryover is there. Total mill rate increase then will go up 0.053, so very, very small amount. I feel good about that. And hopefully we'll see some changes in the near future, and I hope the tax plan the governor has will not see a bunch of decreases coming. Time will tell there. One thing that we do have possibility of getting, and as far as I know, we're not going to count it until I talk to our auditor. I did talk to State Department of Ed, but that would be new facilities waiting for the modular at Eugene Field, and that would be roughly $40,000 a year for 2 years, which is great. That you don't want to. When we did the other 2 elementary schools, we did get new facilities waiting on those, and that's one reason our contingency reserve funds are higher than what they were in the past. And so that would be, I say, one-time money, but that would be a capital project, technology, something like that. Base state aid per pupil went up to $3,838 from $3,870, a $58 increase. That will generate roughly $200,000 more in our budget for next year. The legislators did change at-risk weighting, that we will see about a 36 increase based on last year's numbers, a 36 increase in FTE, or about $136,000 more in at-risk weighting. So some good things happening with our budget. Finally, we've made the cuts and made cuts and made cuts, and now this year we'll finally see some things start to turn around a little bit. Fear, obviously, is what the future will bring, and we'll just have to wait and see. The ORC mill levy will more than likely stay the same. I mean, they prepare their budget, give it to us, and we submit it with ours. But again, that's not our taxing authority. We can't get the money that they collect to use it for anything that we have for school. If it wasn't there, it just wouldn't be assessed, and they'd have to fund their program some other way, but it wouldn't affect our budget at all. Marge had mentioned the retreat. That is July 28th from 8 to 3 o'clock. One of the big topics obviously will be facilities planning, not just elementary, but high school, middle school. We started this process, and when the economy changed, kind of dropped it. Now we need to get back and make some decisions and get that plan up to date and know where we can go to in the future for all of these buildings. And then we'll have administrators there and do their reports and about goals and just general planning for next year. Community conversations, just one quick comment on that. We did meet, June 27th, I believe the date was. Had a really good turnout, real pleased with that. The advisory committee met today again. We went through the results of some of the input we asked for, and starting that process now of making smaller groups and pulling more people together. And I've had several phone calls about that, and more people that want to be involved. I think we're going to see some changes and more collaboration community-wide about some of the issues that we face. And then the last thing I have is just a reminder of the Candidates Forum. I hope everyone is there on July 12th, which is this Thursday at the middle school. Starts at 7 p.m. And should be well attended, and I hope everyone shows up for that. And not that I don't have anything official, but just talking at some of the meetings with the city and county groups, it looks like their mill levies will remain about the same too. So overall, that's good news for Franklin County, I think.
Okay. All right, any questions for Dean from the board? All right, moving on to 9.01. We've been
Susan, just a
presented.
minute. There are several other attachments on there. I mean, it basically explains what I did, but for the public, they can click on those and open it up, and it just explains that a little bit better, but just.
Okay, all righty. We've been presented with fuel bids for diesel fuel and gasoline. and I'm sure you've all reviewed those.
I make a motion to accept the Ottawa Co-op bid, which is substantially cheaper than the Liebharger oil bid.
Second.
All right, any discussion? The motion was made by Brandon, seconded by David. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We're moving on to our section on negotiations.
Madam President, I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing matters related to employer-employee negotiations, whether or not in consultation with representative or representatives of the body, and that the board return to open meeting at, what do you think, 15 minutes from now?
Yeah.
Should be.
At 8:40 o'clock in this room. The executive session is required to protect the district's right to the confidentiality of its negotiating position and the public interest.
And you want to invite?
And I want to invite Dean and Brian.
Second.
Okay, does anyone need a restroom break?
Yes.
Oh, let's make it 8:45.
8:45 with a restroom break. Yay!
Here
All right.
since 5.
All those, raise your right hand. 5-0.
Who's this guy? What's that? It's come from Tim?
Yeah, I think they. You need to know that information. Right. You know, you go by what they tell you.
Madam President, I move we go back into open session.
Second.
All right. David, seconded by Brandon, to come back into open session. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 2, 3, 4, 5. 5-0. Okay. We are presented with a personnel list under 12.01. Did everybody review that?
I did
Have a motion?
move that we approve the personnel list as published.
Second.
All right, moved by
Hold on.
Brandon, seconded by, huh?
I didn't see this one on the list.
It's not on there because it didn't get
We
turned in
just got it
time.
this afternoon, but.
So do we need to add this one?
No, because it wasn't presented to Brian or Dean, it was just given to the board members. We didn't get a copy.
Okay.
In other words, it's not official yet.
They just
Okay.
sent us 7 copies.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we have a motion by Brandon, seconded by Brian, no, David, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
It's okay.
To accept the personnel recommendations. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. Announcements, Dean.
Like I said earlier, Thursday is the candidates forum. I hope all of you can make it to that. I think it's going to be a good setup. Do expect a big crowd. Our last, as far as I know, interviews with Claire from Office of Civil Rights is scheduled for next Monday. So hopefully we'll get through that and get the results and those things soon. And then IBB, we have IBB every Monday night at 5 o'clock. So, I mean, I'm not going to go through every time, but every Monday we have IBB teacher negotiations at 5. The joint luncheon, USD 290 hosts city, county, and us luncheon, that is the 18th, Wednesday the 18th.
And
that'll
where is
be
that?
It-
Here?
Yeah. And then next board meeting's the 23rd, and again, IBB at 5, board meeting at 7. I already had mentioned to Susan, the president and vice president, if they want to attend, training is Friday, August 3rd in Topeka, and we can get you registered for that, and if possible, I would like to go to that with you. And then August 13th, Monday, is the staff breakfast. We start back with staff on the 13th. and usually have board president say a few words. I do have a speaker coming in this year that I think will be a good way to start the year, and then that's also a board meeting night, so a very busy day.
Dean, I didn't see on here the board retreat. When is that again?
Oh, I didn't put that on there.
July
It's the
28th.
28th, Saturday the 28th,
Here at 8 o'clock?
yes. And we planned on going from 8 to 3, so we'll have snack type stuff and then serve lunch, and when we finish in the afternoon, go.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
that's
Any
it.
questions for Dean? Do I have a motion?
So
Move to
moved.
adjourn.
All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, 5-0.
I get 7-0 from the back.
Huh? Yeah, 7-0. Yeah. Everybody's voting twice. All right, if you'll hand those to Dean, those are the people who spoke.
I'll schedule a meeting
My brother,
with the group and,
my brother sent me a text that Cano, when he came up to bat, got booed.